This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to easily and efficiently build and manage your own website. Hi everyone, I'm FlygonHG, and this is the video of my attempts at a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon LeafGreen without using any stab moves. The rules for this playthrough are in the description below. But in short, in addition to standard Nuzlocke rules, there's no using items in battle, no leveling up past the next gym leader's ace before the start of the battle, and we're playing on set mode. While predominantly being known as a form of violent crime, STAB is an acronym that stands for Same Type Attack Bonus. This refers to the fact that if a Pokemon uses a move that's the same type as the Pokemon itself, the move will get a 1.5 times boost in power. Stab is incredibly important when calculating which move will deal the most damage in any given situation, and can often grant Pokemon the extra power needed for an important knockout. But in this run, stab moves are banned. No body, no crime, no stab moves, and I ain't letting up until the day I die. This challenge has actually been recommended by a lot of viewers, but my favorite recommendation was from this commenter who called it a Bluntmon Hardcore Nuzlocke. You know, because blunt is kinda the opposite of stab. It's clever. But since the term Bluntmon also carries another connotation, I'll just call this run Julius Caesar's Safe Space. So, without any further ado, let's get this stab-free party started. Since there aren't any restrictions on encounters in this run, I get my choice of any of the three starters. I decided to take Charmander because I figured that Bulbasaur would be borderline useless without grass and poison moves, and Squirtle is bald. Charmander, on the other hand, gets access to Metal Claw before Brock, and keeps me in good standing with the Pokemon Company. I name my Charmander Stabby Jan, and before we can take more than a few steps, my rival Poop challenges me to a battle. Stabby Jan has Scratch, which has more base power than Squirtle's Tackle, but he knows Tail Whip, which lets him lower our defense. I can negate our defense drops by lowering our enemy's attack with Growl if I want to. And after a few turns, it seems like we're on track to best the tiny turtle. But then, Squirtle gets a crit that brings Stabby Jan down to just 3 HP. All of a sudden, it's looking like it's gonna be an early end to attempt 1. That is, until Stabby Jan decides to defy death and nail Squirtle with a critical hit of her own, winning us the very first battle of the run. On this day, the legend of Stabby Jan was born. With that, I can start catching Pokemon, so I head to Route 1 and encounter a Rattata. Unfortunately, Stabby Ron is a normal type, and knows exclusively normal type moves until level 27 when he learns Pursuit. The same is also true for Stabby Sam, the Spearow, who I catch on Route 22. He won't learn Pursuit until level 19. And while not technically stab moves, I'm banning same type status moves in this challenge as well. So Growl and Tail Whip on normal types are not allowed. Meaning that until I get some TMs, these two guys are pretty much useless. Fortunately, I get an actually usable encounter on Route 2 in the form of Stabby Pam the Caterpie. Caterpie, or rather Butterfree, has an almost completely stab-free moveset. For example, when Stabby Pam evolves at level 10, she learns Confusion, which will be very useful in the early game. In Viridian Forest, I catch a Weedle and I name her Stabby B, which doubles as a nickname and a very apt physical description of her final evolution, Beedrill. When I catch her, Stabby B's only attacking move is Poison Sting, which is of course a stab move. So it means that I have to switch train her like a helpless Magikarp until she evolves at level 10 and learns Fury Attack, which is a dumpster fire of a move, but at least it's legal. With that, it's time to face off against Brock for the first gym badge. All three of my Pokemon that can actually attack are weak to Rock-type moves, but fortunately Brock's Geodude doesn't have a Rock-type move, and his Onix is a phallic monolith of mediocrity. I start with Stabby Jan, who uses a few Growls to lower Geodude's attack as he just sets up defense curls. I fire off a Metal Claw for a bit of damage at one point, but after a few turns, I decide to switch to Stabby Pam as Geodude continues buffing his defense. Then I fire off a Stun Spore on the off chance we cause some full paras in the subsequent turns. Geodude then retaliates with a critical hit tackle that breaks through the attack drops, which shouldn't really matter as long as this isn't the first crit of many. From here, I decide to set up a few Hardens so that Stabby Pam can survive a 4-time super effective Rock Tomb from Brock's Onix. You know, again, assuming no crit. And while I set up Hardens as a trade-off for getting a crit, Geodude winds up getting fully paralyzed for 3 turns in a row. After that, I decide to finish off Geodude with a few confusions, though he does manage to finally break through paralysis for one limp tackle before going down. The experience from defeating Geodude levels up both of my Pokemon to level 15, which is important because Stabby Pam learns Sleep Powder at level 15. Thanks to her ability Compound Eyes, the normally 75% accurate sleep powder becomes 97.5% accurate, which is almost 100% accurate. Emphasis on almost. Stabby Pam ends up missing her very first sleep powder, which lets Onyx freely fire off a Rock Tomb. Thanks to the defense boost from Harden, it doesn't end up doing much damage, and because Rock Tomb is technically a speed control move, the AI won't go for it if they outspeed already. So Stabby Pam is pretty safe to put Onyx to sleep with a second sleep powder on the next turn, and then take him out with a few confusions. It helps that we actually crit the second confusion for a quick kill. Funny enough, Stabby Pam also crit the second confusion on Geodude, not that it actually mattered that time. But it does mean that, along with Stabby Jan's crit against Squirtle, so far every single boss Pokemon has gone down to a critical hit. Doesn't really mean anything, but it's definitely interesting, right? And if you found that interesting, just wait until I tell you about the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. Squarespace is an online platform that helps you build and manage your own website, whether that's an online store for your business or a personal blog for your thoughts. If you've ever tried to set up a website on your own, you'll know that it can be a pretty frustrating experience, kinda like missing a 97.5% accurate sleep powder. Fortunately, that's where Squarespace comes in. With their all-in-one platform, Squarespace streamlines the whole process of creating a website from scratch, making it super simple to quickly design polished websites using their customizable templates. Just take a look at the website I created in no time at all using Squarespace, poppyhg.com, the home of dozens of curated pictures of my corgi puppy, Poppy. Poppy loves fall in the Northeast, so be sure to keep checking the site for new pictures. Squarespace also has a ton of other really useful features, like analytic information about the traffic of your website, the ability to add and play embedded videos directly on your website, and Squarespace member areas, which can be used to connect with audiences and create exclusive members-only content. So, if you're looking to start a website for your business or hobby, then you should absolutely check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your website, you can use my custom link to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to the challenge. With our new level cap, Stabby Jan is able to evolve into a slightly larger, slightly redder version of herself. Then, on Route 3, I catch a Pidgey. Pidgey learns Sand Attack, which is a ground-type move, so Stabby Kim technically isn't totally useless, but she's pretty close. After that though, I head to the Poké Center on Route 4 and talk to a shifty salesman who sells me a Magikarp. If there's any Pokemon that's gonna thrive in a Stabless challenge, it's gonna be a pre-physical special split Gyarados. And all I can say is that it's about time. For too long, this Pokemon has been underrated and underappreciated. Finally, I have the chance to show all the doubters out there just how good of a Pokemon Gyarados can be. Welcome to the team, Stabby Tom, though for now, you are going into the box. In Mount Moon, I make sure to repel until I can head into the tunnels and guarantee a Paris, who I name Stabby Zoe. You might be confused as to why I would want to guarantee such a sucky Pokemon, but I do have my reasons. All will be revealed soon enough. On the other side of Mount Moon, I quickly clear through the fight with my rival, the Nugget Bridge, and the Trainer Gauntlet on Route 25. This gets me to Bill's house, where I become an accomplice to his horrifying science experiment that has him puppeting the body of a helpless Clefairy for some unknown but probably perverse reason. After that, though, I can make my way to Route 5, where I catch a Meowth. I name him Stabby Bob, and since he knows Bite, he's actually kinda usable. This also gets me access to the daycare center, which makes it way easier to level up the Pokemon that would have required switch training. Chief among them is Stabby Tom, who evolves into a Gyarados at level 20. He also learns Bite at level 20, which will be pretty useful into Misty's Psychic-type Starmie. As our battle with the second gym leader begins, she leads with Staryu, and I lead with Stabby Pam, who does what she does best. She puts the Staryu to sleep on the first turn, and then starts hitting them with Confusion. Staryu wakes up after 2 turns, but just uses Recover, so I put them back to sleep with another Sleep Powder. We do have to repeat this a few times as Staryu gets an early wake up and Misty also heals, but eventually Staryu goes down and Stabby Pam remains happy and healthy at full HP. That brings in Starmie second and last. They outspeed and hit a strong Water Pulse before Stabby Pam lulls them to sleep with her Magical Powder. Then I switch to Stabby B as Starmie snoozes. I set up a Focus Energy on Starmie's second turn of sleep. The idea here is to try and beat Misty without using a certain overpowered blue noodle, but even with Starmie's tremendously long snooze, Stabby B kinda shits the bed here. She starts by missing her first Fury attack, and then getting pretty mediocre damage rolls on the subsequent turns. At the very least, she doesn't hit herself in confusion after being confused by Water Pulse, but it does mean that now I'm going to have to switch to Stabby Tom, who shrugs off a Water Pulse. A second Water Pulse confuses him, but his held Personberry means that we're able to safely fire off a secret power that brings Starmie into the red. Instead of using Recover, Misty decides to just go for another Water Pulse, which confuses again, but fortunately Stabby Tom breaks through confusion and kills Starmie with a second secret power, winning us a battle that could have gotten out of hand pretty quickly. With the second gym badge obtained, I decide to kick Stabby Tom to the curb. I just think that this challenge will be more fun without him. Sorry buddy, but thanks for helping out with Misty. In his stead, I catch a Sandshrew from Route 11 and name him Stabby Joe. Sandshrew and Sandslash learn exactly 2 stab moves by level up, so this is a fairly solid addition to the team, especially because Stabby Joe has an impish nature. With a few levels, he evolves into Sandslash in time for us to fight rival Poop on the SS Anne. Not the safest place for a Pokemon battle, but whatever. This fight also isn't particularly difficult because it's largely the exact same as the previous fight in Cerulean City. But I did want to show this masterclass of sucking from Stabby Jan against rival Poop's Pidgeotto. She starts by landing 2 85% accurate Mega Punches, one of which was after a Sand Attack accuracy drop, so I do have to admit that that's pretty clutch. But then Stabby Jan proceeds to miss 4 95% accurate Metal Claws in a row. Even with the accuracy drop from Sand Attack, the odds of that are 0.68%. On this day, the legend of Stabby Jan died. But after that, the rest of the fight goes smoothly enough, so let's just jump to the fight against Lieutenant Surge for the 3rd gym badge. As you may have noticed, Stabby Zoe has evolved into Parasect, and it's time for her to earn her keep. By teaching her the TM for Dig, Parasect becomes a moderately good check into Surge's electric types. Her grass typing means that she resists Shockwave, and her attack stat is good enough to one-shot Surge's first 2 Pokemon, and 2-shot Raichu. As long as we avoid getting paralyzed and hit through the double team evasion boosts, everything will be fine. And even if things go sideways, we also have Stabby Joe, who pretty effortlessly walls Surge's electric types. But Stabby Zoe actually manages to get a critical hit against Raichu before he bothers setting up any double teams, so this fight ends up being even shorter and easier than I was expecting. That's badge number 3. Now, as you may have guessed, I've been skipping over encounters that I don't end up using in any major battles, so all the encounters along the way to Celadon City really aren't worth mentioning. But once I get to Celadon City, I head to the roof and take the Eevee that is just randomly sitting there on the desk. Finders keepers. I name him Stabby John, and for now, he goes to the box. That's because Stabby B has Erika completely covered on her own. I've taught her the TM for Aerial Ace, which she uses to eviscerate all of Erika's gym trainers, and then Erika herself. I mean, it's not actually enough to one-shot any of her Pokemon, but with a Cherry Berry to cure the paralysis from her lead Victory Bell Stun Spore, her Pokemon really can't do anything to my absolutely terrifying 3-foot-tall B. Vileplume is able to paralyze us again, and Stabby B does get fully paralyzed on the following turn, but as you can see, she doesn't take much damage from Vileplume's attacks, so Erika would need a tremendous amount of full paras for this to go sideways. And fortunately it doesn't, meaning that the 4th gym badge is ours. With that bit of gardening out of the way, the level cap skyrockets and the bottom half of Kanto opens up. I start by evolving Stabby John the Eevee. I decided on Flareon because his stab moves are garbage anyways, and he can still be pretty useful with a moveset of Secret Power, Dig, and Shadow Ball, all of which are TMs that I can get in Celadon City. With his special defense stat, he's especially good into Sabrina. I mean, he'll definitely be better than can't hit water falling out of a boat Stabby Jan, that's for sure. And just look at how cute he is. For the question of the day, let me know what your favorite evolution is. Mine's Leafeon, but Flareon's definitely up there for just being so dang fluffy. I will protect you with my life, Stabby John. At this point, I also evolved Stabby Bob into Persian. I was originally planning on leaving him as a Meowth for a while to take advantage of his pickup ability, but then I decided that he'd be a pretty good answer into Giovanni's Rhyhorn if I taught him Water Pulse. Persian is by no means a strong special attacker, especially without Technician, but against Pokemon with garbage special defense stats and quadruple weaknesses, he'll get the job done. Giovanni's Kangaskhan has the potential to be scary with Mega Punch, but the AI is pretty stupid and just repeatedly goes for Bite. Other than one Mega Punch, which ends up missing anyways. So Stabby Joe is able to come in and take her out with 2 Brick Breaks, letting us handily defeat Kanto's most dangerous crime lord. After another forgettable rival fight in Pokemon Tower, I managed to catch a Ghastly. This is a great encounter since the Ghastly line is a special attacker and both of her stab typings are physical. So with some TMs, she'll be a pretty formidable member of the team. I name our Ghastly Stabby Liz, named after no one in particular, don't read too much into that. With Mr. Fuji saved, I can head to Route 16 and awaken the sleeping Snorlax blocking off Cycling Road. I decide to catch him because Snorlax is one of the few non-water type Pokemon that can learn Surf, but that's all I'll be using Stabby Rex for. Snorlax would be a pretty great Pokemon to use, even without his normal type stab moves, but I don't really feel like using him here. However, I do feel like using Gengar. So, around level 36, I decide to trade with Uncle Jay and evolve Stabby Liz into her final form. I'm not sure if it makes much logical sense to not use Gyarados and Snorlax, only to end up using Gengar, but you know what they say, the heart wants what it wants, and I want Gengar. But anyways, it's almost time to fight Koga. And hey look, I'm showing footage from a completely random trainer battle. Surely this will have a happy ending, and everything will be totally fine. You know, life can be cruel. Day in and day out, we struggle just to get by. It can feel like a Herculean task just to get out of bed, just to head to class, to go to work, whatever it is you gotta do that day. But there are times when everything seems good. Life seems to ease up just a little, and you forget about how ruthless this world can be. You let your guard down, and you let yourself relax. And as soon as you do, life sends a strong naked child with a tail to kill your dog. Never let your guard down, folks. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Rest in peace, Stabby John. Rest in peace. Well, that promptly ends what was starting to look like a deathless run. But through the ashes of tragedy, we must rise, stronger than ever. Stabby Jan rejoins the team, this time with a pair of very useless wings. But hey, it means I can put Charizard in the thumbnail now. This leads us to the fight against Koga for badge number 5. I've gone in intentionally underleveled because the level caps for Koga and Sabrina are the same, plus Koga isn't particularly difficult. I've taught Stabby Liz Psychic, which means that she's able to do a massive amount of damage to Koga's poison types, and they really can't do much in return since we quad resist Sludge. The only way that this goes poorly is if Muck manages to stall out our Psychic PP with Minimize. We do miss a few times before he goes down, and because Weezing doesn't get one shot by Psychic, Koga ends up healing for a few turns, meaning that it takes all 10 of our Psychic PP to net us a victory. But with an entire team of 5 other Pokemon in the back, I really wasn't too worried. This victory lets me use the HM for Surf outside of battle, so I immediately catch a Tentacool who I name Stabby Tim. He'll be our resident Ice Beam user, assuming he survives all the way to Lance. And by teaching him Giga Drain, he's also a pretty good check into my rival's Blastoise. I also surf on Route 6 and catch a Slowpoke named Stabby Max. He'll be an important member of the team later, but for now he goes into the box. The storming of Silphco is relatively uneventful. The rival fight is occasionally difficult since some of his Pokemon are starting to get pretty strong here, but at this point in the game, his Pokemon still all have their level up movesets, which is especially damning for Blastoise. I don't use Charmander often, so this is the first time I've ever really noticed how horrible this Blastoise moveset is, especially compared to Charizard's moveset if you pick Bulbasaur. But anyways, this fight is not particularly difficult. Neither is the Giovanni fight because his Pokemon also get totally screwed by having their level up movesets. In fact, out of all 4 of his Pokemon, only 3 moves can actually damage Stabby Liz. Poison Sting from Nidorino and Nidoqueen, and Rock Blast from Rhyhorn. Rock Blast does have the potential to be a little dangerous, but it would probably need to connect 5 times and get a crit or 2. Plus, since the AI loves speed control, he'll usually just go for Scary Face anyways, which isn't even enough to make our incredibly fast Gengar slower than the incredibly slow Rhyhorn. So yeah, it's a pretty straightforward victory. That means it's time for Sabrina and her Psychic types. In this battle, I decided to put all my eggs in one basket, and that basket is Stabby Bob with Shadow Ball. Based on pretty much nothing, I'm hoping that he's strong enough and fast enough to take care of all of Sabrina's Pokemon before they can kill him in return. It starts out well enough as we kill both her Kadabra and her Mr. Mime with a single Shadow Ball apiece, though we did get a crit on Mr. Mime. I'm not really sure if that mattered. Things start to get a little more sweaty as Shadow Ball doesn't even do 50% to her Venomoth, which to be fair is not a Psychic type. A held Person Berry means that her Supersonic was useless, so we fire off another Shadow Ball that leaves the giant moth in the red as she hits a Psybeam. Sabrina then heals, so our third Shadow Ball doesn't get the kill either. Nor does the 4th Shadow Ball, but fortunately Venomoth just misses another Supersonic. Then Sabrina heals again, so ball number 5 brings Venomoth back to where we were 4 turns ago. On the next turn, this insufferable moth falls back into the red as she hits another Supersonic. So I switch out to Stabby Pam, who shrugs off a Psybeam. Then I hit Venomoth with a Sleep Powder. This now lets me safely switch back to Stabby Bob as Sabrina uses a full heal. Never have I seen so much attention given to a single Venomoth. This is ridiculous. But with the 7th Shadow Ball, Sabrina's apparent pride and joy goes down, which brings in Alakazam last. So now let's see if Stabby Bob has what it takes. We do manage to outspeed and nail him with a Shadow Ball, but he survives with a Sliver. Fortunately, as I expected, Alakazam just goes for a Calm Mind. So one last Shadow Ball finishes him off, winning us the battle. I don't think I've ever said Shadow Ball that many times in one fight, but that's the 6th gym badge obtained. At this point in most Gen 3 Kanto games, you can just clear through the remaining 2 gyms by clicking Surf with any halfway decent water type. But I obviously can't do that here since none of my water types can use water type moves. So I will have to be ever so slightly more prepared. I start by heading to my hometown and fishing up a Krabby. Not a good Pokemon, but like Gyarados, his special attack stat is so much worse than his physical attack stat that there's barely any reason to use his stab water move types anyways. So this challenge is actually a good chance to use him. Plus, Stabby Lou has the ability Shell Armor, which means he can't be crit. With some training, Stabby Lou evolves into Kingler and joins the team. I also take the time to level up and evolve Stabby Max into Slowbro. Since stab moves are off the table, I've decided to train him to be a physical attacker. With his natural bulk, he'll be solid into the late game with a combination of Shadow Ball and Dig, as well as access to Yawn. With these 2 new team members, my early game bugs have permanently retired to the box, and it's time to face off against Blaine. He leads with his Growlithe, and I lead with Stabby Bob to eat the Intimidate. I was pretty shocked to find that a Water Pulse wasn't enough for a one-shot here, even with a massive level difference, but it's not the end of the world. Sure, Stabby Bob has to take a hard Fire Blast as a result, but this does get Blaine to waste one of his Hyper Potions. So 2 more Water Pulses take out the smaller of his 2 pups. The smaller of Blaine's 2 cows comes in next, so I switch to Stabby Lou, who shrugs off a Fire Blast. Then a physical Mud Shot cleanly knocks out Ponyta. Rapidash comes in next, and surprisingly with the speed EVs and the badge boost, we actually outspeed Rapidash, who also gets KO'd by a single Mud Shot. So that just leaves Arcanine. And Intimidate as he comes in means that a Mud Shot doesn't even do 50%, but Arcanine just misses a Fire Blast. So then I go for a Protect because I might as well stall out Fire Blast PP in case things go south. And good thing I did because a Dig from Stabby Lou leaves the giant dog with a Sliver, letting him get off a very nasty Fire Blast. A held Rossberry heals the burn that Stabby Lou suffers, meaning that we should be able to stay in and finish off Arcanine with a perfectly accurate string. Unfortunately, Blaine heals again, so we don't get the kill. And since Stabby Lou is dead to another Fire Blast, I gotta switch to Stabby Jan, who tanks a soft bite. She knows Dig as well, so that's what I go for. As we surface on the following turn, Arcanine survives in the yellow and then hits us with a very hard critical hit takedown, activating a random Oran Berry I had attached for basically no reason. And then, since Blaine is finally done healing, one last strength finishes off Arcanine, winning us the 7th gym badge. From here, I can beeline straight to Giovanni. Even without Surf Spam, he's pretty easy. Like before, the only Pokemon that can even hit Stabby Liz are his Nidoking and Nidoqueen with Poison Sting, and his 2 Rhyhorns with Rock Blast. I take care of his lead Rhyhorn with Water Pulse from Stabby Bob. And then, when Nidoqueen comes out, I bring in my Ghostly Terror on an Earthquake. Psychics then promptly one-shot Giovanni's 3 subsequent Pokemon. Nidoqueen and Nidoking take super effective damage, and I guess Dugtrio is just too frail to tank a neutral hit. I was a little worried here that his second Rhyhorn would be at a high enough level to survive a Psychic, but nope. One-shots all around. That wins us the 8th and final gym badge. And then after another battle with my rival and a quick trip through Victory Road, my team of Bluntmons and I have made it to the Pokemon League. All that's left to do is face off against the Elite Four and the Champion. Here's our final team leveled up to level 60 to match Lance's Dragonite. Unlike so many other challenges in the past, this team really hasn't known much hardship, which makes me a little concerned for what's to come. But let's see if they have what it takes to finish this run strong. First up is Lorelei. She leads with Dewgong, and I lead with Stabby Liz, who knows Thunderbolt. I'm a little dismayed to find out that Thunderbolt isn't enough for a one-shot, which lets Dewgong hit a fairly nasty Surf. Really gotta love minus special attack natures on Gengar. Also, Stabby Liz has a special attack IV of 1. But it's not the worst thing that Lorelei wastes a full restore here, as 2 more Thunderbolts take out Dewgong. That brings in Slowbro next, because the AI is weird and thinks that Amnesia is super effective to my Poison-type Pokemon. Slowbro is evidently less bulky than Dewgong, because a Thunderbolt is enough for the one-shot. Third is Lapra, presumably because of super effective Confuse Ray. A crit Surf definitely kills us here, but I'm gambling that she just goes for Confuse Ray, which ends up being a safe gamble. A held Lumberry cures our confusion, so even after Citrus Berry recovery, Lapra goes down to a second Thunderbolt. Fourth is Cloyster, and she wastes a turn going for Protect, but then on the next turn, a Thunderbolt gets a clean one-shot on the special defensively frail Bivalve. So that just leaves Jinx. I switch to Stabby Jan, who gets hit by a Lovely Kiss, but a held Chesto Berry wakes her up. This lets her hit Jinx with an Earthquake on the next turn, which is almost enough for the one-shot. We do have to sit through a turn of Lorelei healing, but with a few more Earthquakes, Jinx goes down, winning us the battle against the first member of the Elite Four. Next is Bruno. He leads with an Onix, and I lead with Stabby Tim. Unsurprisingly, a ×4 super effective Giga Drain cleanly knocks out Onix. And since Stabby Tim is part Poison type, Bruno's second Onix that knows Earthquake comes out next. So he too goes down to a single Giga Drain. Then Hitmonchan comes in third. I decide to stay in and chip away with Ice Beam as he just goes for Rock Tomb. Because of Stabby Tim's Clear Body ability, Rock Tomb doesn't lower our speed, so the Rock Tombs just keep coming, making it pretty safe to take out Hitmonchan with a Giga Drain and a few Ice Beams. Once Hitmonchan goes down, Hitmonlee comes in fourth. So now it's time to switch to Stabby Liz, who frankly probably could have just dealt with Bruno all by herself. In fact, Gengar is pretty filthy into the entire Kanto Elite Four. There's only a handful of Pokemon that she can't one-shot with the proper moveset and a halfway decent special attack stat. Just be sure to train her up against other Ghastly and Pokemon Tower, because they give special attack EVs. Anyways, with a few more Psychics, Bruno's remaining 2 Pokemon are defeated, and victory is ours. Third is Agatha, and you'll never guess how I handle her Poison types. It's just a sweep with Psychics from Stabby Liz. The only thing that I had to do was make sure to restore Psychic PP between the fights so that we don't run out before Agatha's team goes down. But I'd have to be a total moron to forget to do that. Agatha's second Gengar actually does manage to survive a Psychic, so it isn't a full one-shot sweep, but she just put Stabby Liz to sleep with Hypnosis, which is cured by our held Chesto Berry. So Agatha heals, though it obviously doesn't matter. I use Thunderbolt so that Agatha doesn't feel inclined to heal again, and then one final Psychic puts Gengar back in her grave, winning us the battle. So last for the Elite Four is Lance, the Flying-type trainer. He leads with Gyarados, so I lead with Stabby Liz. Are you tired of seeing her back sprite yet? A Thunderbolt obviously takes down Lance's Pool Noodle with one fell swoop. And then, very generously, Lance brings out his Aerodactyl next. So we snipe the fossilized dino out of the sky with a critical hit Thunderbolt. That crit probably mattered, but I do think that we would have been totally fine regardless. Third is Lance's big mighty Dragonite. I hard switch to Stabby Tim as Dragonite just sets up a safeguard. And then, as should be expected, an Ice Beam takes him out with one shot. That just leaves Lance with his other 2 blue Pool Noodles, both of which also go down to a single Ice Beam. The Stabby Liz and Stabby Tim combo really just can't be beat. By the way, a Starmie with Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, and Psychic effectively solos the entire Elite Four, with the exception of maybe Lorelei's Jinx if she puts you to sleep. So if you want an even easier way to beat the LeafGreen Elite Four than using Gengar and Tentacruel, then Starmie's your answer. But anyways, that's Lance and the Elite Four defeated. Which means that it's time for the final fight of the run, the fight against rival Poop for the championship title. I brought 6 really cool Pokemon to the Elite Four that all worked super hard to get here, and so far, not all of them have really gotten a chance to shine. So for this final battle, in the interest of inclusion, I'll be intentionally using all 6 of my Pokemon. And with such noble intent, what could possibly go wrong? My rival leads with his big dumb Pidgeot, so I lead with Stabby Liz. A Thunderbolt fries the poultry in one shot, instantly putting Poop on the back foot and making this a 6v5. Alakazam comes in next, so I switch to Stabby Max on a Psychic. With the held leftovers, he takes it like a champ. And then a second Psychic doesn't do much, and a Shadow Ball cleanly KOs the Spoon Enthusiast. Great job, Max, way to contribute. Third is Arcanine, who drops our attack with an Intimidate as our leftovers restore some HP. I stay in for a turn to tank a super effective Bite, which lets Stabby Max hit Arcanine with a Yawn. Then, after some leftovers recovery, I switch to Stabby Lou on a pretty hard bite as Arcanine falls asleep. After that, I hit him with a Mud Shot that does around 50%. Since Dig is 5 more base power, I figure it'll be enough for the kill. But it appears to low roll, or the Gen 3 yellow health bar lies, because Arcanine survives with a Sliver. I mean, at the very least, the big dog stays asleep. But this causes Poop to use a full restore, as we hit him with a Mud Shot that ends up critting and leaving him with a slightly larger Sliver than before. This causes Poop to switch out to Exeggutor, who tanks a return pretty well. So I switch to Stabby Jan on a Giga Drain. Then I hit the Exeggutor with a Dragon Claw that brings him into the yellow. He then puts Stabby Jan to sleep with a Sleep Powder. So I switch to Stabby Tim as Eggy fortunately misses an Egg Bomb. And then with an Ice Beam, the Palm Tree goes down. This brings in Rhydon next, so we easily take him out in one shot with a ×4 super effective Giga Drain. That leaves Poop with just 2 Pokemon as his fiery puppy comes back in. So I switch to Stabby Liz as Poop heals for a second time. I try to put Arcanine to sleep with a Hypnosis, but we miss and get hit by a nasty Flamethrower. Since this is the last battle, I decide to gamble with another Hypnosis, and this time we connect. Then I go for a Dream Eater to do some damage and gain back some HP. On the next turn, I switch to Stabby Joe. As Arcanine snoozes, Stabby Joe is perfectly set up to finally contribute to the team and take a kill. Poop's puppy does wake up and hit a very strong Flamethrower, but Stabby Joe survives a non-critical hit, letting him fire off a Rock Slide, which leaves this fluffy hairball with a sliver of HP again. It's okay, Stabby Joe. Not everyone was born to be a hero. I switch to Stabby Lou as Poop uses his third full restore on what is quickly becoming an absolutely infuriating final fight. A Mud Shot on the next turn brings him back to about 50%, and Stabby Lou tanks a Flamethrower. Then I put my faith in Stabby Lou and have him go for one last dig. This time it ends up being enough, and Poop's big dumb dog finally falls. Which means that all that's left is Blastoise. Fortunately, we have a ringer for this one. I just have to bring in Stabby Tim, who with Giga Drain should be able to easily take care of Poop's fearsome living weapon with just a few hits. Well folks, that's really bad. I guess I kinda forgot to restore Giga Drain PP after the fight against Bruno. We can do big damage with that last Giga Drain PP, but after that I have to resort to Thief, which is doing basically nothing. Blastoise also manages to land a rain-boosted critical hit Hydro Pump, so all of a sudden, things are looking kinda scary. But I'm still gonna try and finish this battle without losing a team member. I start by switching to Stabby Max, who tanks what should be Blastoise's 4th Hydro Pump. Then, after some leftovers recovery, we tank his 5th and final Hydro Pump, which fortunately doesn't crit. This lets us get off a Yawn. And now that Blastoise is stuck with Bite, things should be a little easier. I switch to Stabby Lou, who can't be crit. Blastoise hits a Bite, and Stabby Lou survives with just 6 HP. So, now that Blastoise is asleep, we hit the tanky reptile with a return that of course leaves him in the red. And then this freaking dude uses a 4th full restore to bring his stupid turtle back to full HP. I feel like half of this video script has been me talking about this final fight. I mean, I did this to myself, so I can't be that annoyed. At the very least, this sets us up for a rather poetic final confrontation as I bring in Stabby Jan. Blastoise is stuck using Bite, but Stabby Jan also sleeps for 4 full turns, so this will actually come down to the wire. A crit would be devastating, though at least a Citrus Berry gives us a little more HP to work with. And once Stabby Jan does finally wake up, Dragon Claws are doing far more damage than Blastoise's bites. So, a few turns later, Stabby Jan is able to deliver the final blow, defeating our rival starter, just like she did in the very first fight of the challenge. With that, we've won the battle and the run. Well, that was a fun, quick challenge. Thanks so much to everyone who suggested this as an idea for a video. Fire Red and Leaf Green aren't the hardest games to Nuzlocke, but I figured that this would make for a good proof of concept. And doing it in Leaf Green meant that I got to use a few Pokemon that I don't normally get to use in these Gen 3 Kanto games. If you like the idea of a no-stab run, let me know what other games you'd like to see me try this in. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I know that September's been a little slow with new videos across the channels, but I needed a bit of a break to recharge and reset, so I really appreciate how supportive everyone's been. I'm really excited for you all to check out the challenges that I have planned for October. And then before you know it, it'll be time for Scarlet and Violet, which are going to be a blast for all types of content. If you enjoyed watching, it'd be great if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. Or don't, I don't know. But I do know that you should follow me on Twitter and Twitch to keep up with streams of my future challenges. You should also subscribe to my highlights channel to get highlights of the challenge I'm currently streaming before it's cut down to a video on the main channel. And be sure to join the Flag on HG community Discord, where you can discuss Nuzlocking and contribute to future challenges. The links are in the description below. Stay tuned for more Nuzlocke videos, and until then, remember to always, always, always play around the critical hit.